what do I think about the ruling the Supreme Court made regarding the abortion issue? Uh, I think, first of all, it's very difficult for some people to admit what they don't know. I made a call before I came on today to the doctor and had a conversation about this, and I try to be honest about my my perspective. Ricky Temple has a perspective, but what's interesting about my perspective is often tied to my issues. So if I can't find a job, guess what my issue is? Employment, right? If I can't, don't get paid enough, my issue is salary. There are some things that will never be my issue. I would not be able to understand that. And one of the things about being a pastor, being a guy who does public speaking, is you often think, if you're not careful, you have the answer for everything because you got the microphone, and that you're right because you quote a few Bible verses and you sound impressive. I think the most important thing for me is to make sure that when I speak to an issue like abortion, that I'm informed. Let me tell you something that was fascinating for me. A few years ago, I realized out of all the books, the hundreds of books I've read, out of all the education I have, all the degrees, I had never read one book on abortion. But I had an opinion about it. I had a strong opinion. So let me give you my opinion. And that opinion is still true, but you're going to just listen to me all the way through. I want every baby to be born. That's what I want. So I want to be clear. I'm going to say that a few times in this so that you don't get confused and misunderstand me. I want every baby to be born. That's my desire. But first of all, I have to be clear. I can't have a baby. I don't have the ability to bring forth life. I can participate in the creation of life, but I cannot carry a baby. So there are certain things that aren't my issue. For example, whatever ruling they come up with regarding abortion, I will never be the person who has to make a decision about an abortion for me in terms of my personal physical body. I'm not, that's never going to be the case. Okay. Secondly, I found this out. I don't think I understand the history of abortion. I don't understand the technical impact of it. In other words, I don't understand how it's done. Where you go, what's the procedure, what's the aftermath, not from a personal experience. There's something else that's interesting. I don't have I don't have certain concerns. 30,000, this is amazing, 30,000 plus women a year are impregnated by somebody against their will. That will never be my issue. That I'm not biologically vulnerable to that, so I don't have to think about that. But 30,000 plus women have to think about that, and little girls. Incest, that's not something that I personally can be a victim of, at least in terms of being impregnated. So that's not my issue. So if I'm making decisions about this issue, but it's not my issue, I have to be careful that I don't have an opinion that's just rooted in my own personal thoughts. I am surprised at the depth of my ignorance. And I'm surprised at the way pastors, ministers, guys like me, speak with such knowledge and authority without really knowing much about what they say. Let me give you an example. I went to a class, and I sat in a class, it was online, but I sat in this class where they talked about abortion, and they were for it. I had never done that. I didn't understand the history of it, how it started in the country, didn't understand any of that. And also didn't understand the procedure and the process. I didn't understand what it was like when several states had different policies regarding abortion. I didn't understand that one state said no, one state said yes, and how that impacts people. I didn't understand that men, mainly men, and I say this without being mean or racist, but mainly white men, are making policies for women and that they don't even know, that they will never encounter. They make medical judgments. I've seen pastors in debates with people, and I'm embarrassed as a pastor because I'm saying, you know Genesis and Exodus, but you don't know much about biology and chemistry. You don't know anything about this. Your statements are not tied to fact. For example, I talked to a doctor, right? And I wanted to talk to a doctor who was a specialist in this area. And I just asked a few questions. And what I learned was amazing. Where they make these laws, where they draw the lines will determine what they can and can't do. Where the pregnancy happens in the body, does the heartbeat law was one of the things they wanted to do here in Georgia. The doctor said to me, it puts us in an awkward place and it changes all the options. Now let me say this again for everybody who's nervous. I want every baby to be born. That's my personal preference. My personal preference is I want everybody to live. I understand that. But here's what I don't face as an issue, the same issues this doctor faces. When a baby is born in a fallopian tube, and the baby is born, and I didn't know this. I didn't know that pregnancy can happen when you have C-sections. You can have scar tissue, and that the baby basically can land in scar tissue, and that it can grow in the scar tissue. It's amazing. And so once this is discovered, the doctor said to me, the way the laws are written sometimes in some states, you won't be able to interfere with that. So the concern is coming up with rules that speak to the broader concerns and not just thinking about it from my perspective. And so if you ask me my bottom line feeling, I'm concerned. I'm concerned that we don't have a conversation with people that we disagree with. Let me say it to you one more time, third time. I want every baby to be born. I want every baby to have an opportunity. I want that. I would love to see more babies adopted. But I want to also deal with the issue that's created when you need $10,000 to $30,000 to have an adoption. And the average person doesn't have that. I want to deal with that. I think that you have to deal with all the issues. Sometimes you can establish a rule or a law and not understand the issues you create for everybody downwind. And you have to make sure that you care. And here's what the problem is. You know, I believe the bigger problem that we should talk about is our sexual attitudes. Because all of this is rooted in our attitude towards sex. Y'all do know what that is, right? Okay, good. So we can get lost in the abortion conversation. We can get lost in all that. But as long as everybody is having sex everywhere with anybody they want, as often as they feel, and they got this definition of love, and the music says do it, and everybody says do it. See, in the Bible, the reason God said that wait until you're married to have sex is because if you had a baby, the baby lands in a safe place. There is a safe place where families can rally around this whole pregnancy issue, and there's no need to have the thought that I can't take care of this baby and let's get an abortion. There is no need for that because there's provision for it. But what's interesting is a lot of times now, when you have this large number of people having babies with no insurance, no protection, no place to go, I don't want them to make this decision. But if I'm not careful, guess what? That's not my issue. So I can point fingers, I can make judgments, I can say things, but I'm not willing to put my money on the line. I'm not willing to help them adopt, to give them the $10,000 to $30,000. I'm not willing to do anything. So they make decisions that maybe they wouldn't make if we helped them. Maybe if we talked about a broader conversation. I don't know where this is going to land in the end, and I think my job is not to sort out what's going to happen with the Supreme Court. I have opinions about that. I have opinions about us turning left because people are so outraged because of the way they feel they're being treated and the idea that they don't have control. And what's interesting is sometimes you can make people think things that aren't necessarily your goal. You do that in marriage, right? You say something and that's not your goal. You're not trying to rob a person of their rights. You're simply trying to say, here's what I want you to consider. Maybe the problem for us is that we just aren't talking. And the Bible says, are people divided against themselves? See, you can win today and lose the war tomorrow because I've made you think I don't want to hear what you got to say. And that's fine as long as it's on my side. In other words, as long as I'm winning as a Christian, it's fine. I can put Muslims down. I can put Buddhists down. I can put anybody down. But if the coin switches, and historically it always does, and the other side wins, then now we have all kinds of things that I don't want to happen. But when I had all the power, I used my power and ignored you. I live in a world with people that have not decided to follow Jesus. John 17 says, I don't want you to leave the world. I don't want you to be like them. But I got to learn how to deal with them. You work every day on your job with people who don't agree with you. They cuss, they do blah, 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 and you find a way to work and make a living. We live in a world where we got to talk to each other. This divided politics, this divided stuff that we're living through now is bad for all of us. A house divided against itself, Jesus said, cannot stand. So what do I want? I want everybody to live. That's what I want. But I don't want this division. I don't want to ignore people on the other side who have a different view than me and act like what they say doesn't matter. I don't want to create rules and boundaries for them where they have no out in the examples I just gave. I don't want a person who was raped or a person who has incest. I don't want those persons to think I don't care about that. I don't want to be a man sitting up saying, well, I think I'll just go ahead and don't worry about it. I think I got to be careful about that. And I've got to be careful that I don't, as a Christian, communicate something that I can't change. But, you know, we Christians know everything. We saved, sanctified, know everything. We saved, sanctified, and can't be corrected because we know God and Jesus. And we use terms and we just throw it out there. You're killing babies. I understand what you mean. But I want to say, more than saying things that inflame people, I need to hear what you're saying. And I need to make sure that I'm listening. But if you don't want to listen, that's okay too, I guess. But the consequences is, like Colin Powell once said, you said your enemy get to fight too. The enemy has a voice. The Bible said that you should try to make peace with people. We're not doing that in our politics, and that's dangerous for our country. That's dangerous for us. It's dangerous for a church. So what's your bottom line, Reverend? You're for or against? I told you from the beginning, I'm 35 times, I want everybody to be born. I told you I don't want to see any of this happen. But I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter what I want. If everybody's going to sleep with everybody and do everything they want to do, it doesn't matter. I can say what I want, but it doesn't matter if families won't unite around people who've gotten pregnant and try to help them. It won't matter. It won't matter. I can say what I want to say. I know what I would do in my family context. I know how I would help. I know how I've already done that. I know how I've already jumped in the fight when somebody gets pregnant. I know I've already not condemned them. I know I've already done that. The issue for me is that I care about issues beyond my issues and beyond what I deal with. I got to care about that. And I think we've communicated something to people that we don't mean to. As the Bible verse says, let not your good be evil spoken of. Don't do something that makes people think something that you don't really mean. I think it's painful to see what I've seen in this country. But my answer is, and I say it as I close, I want every baby born. But I think we've lost something. The ability to hear each other, listen to each other, and that is dangerous. And it always turns against the Christians who are branded. The book You Lost Me by Kinnerman says it well. He says, the world sees us, young people in particular, as unscientific. We don't care about science. We don't want to be questioned about anything. That we are very restrictive and controlling. And that's why they don't come to church. That's why they're not with us. That's why most of you have very few young people in your church. They don't care what you think. Now, you may not have seen this, but I've seen it. I grew up as an unchurched person. We didn't go to church. So I didn't care what you thought. I went and played basketball on Sunday. And you live in a world now where the fastest growing group of people are nuns. They have no religious affiliation at all. We must be careful that we don't become irrelevant. We must be careful that we are viewed as people that don't listen and don't care. If that happens long enough, we're in trouble. And I tell you, the Bible says in the last days there'll be a great falling away. I think this is probably amazing.